So the pitch for Birthday Treat, I guess, would be in the kind of like in a parallel sort of universe, in a kind of Alan Moore style, V for Vendetta style way. Um, in the UK, there has been like a paradigm shift. The government has kind of fallen, and a new kind of totalitarian sort of like government has arisen, and that's like the network. And they're essentially like if Netflix was on acid, essentially, and and Netflix kind of, or Disney, for example, kind of came together and just basically started ruling the country. So you have this kind of like country that's dictated by entertainment in a kind of way. So it's a little bit, I would say, the elevator pitch would be like, it's a bit like The Purge, it's a bit like Running Man, it's a bit like 1984.
Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and I'm here today with author Anthony Self. Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. In the UK, we've got the Storm Eunice going hard. Parts of the O2 are falling apart, but apart from that, yeah, all right. Yeah.
The more and more that, because we last time we talked, Birthday Treat, your book Birthday Treat, wasn't released yet.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, whenever I see this crazy stuff happening on the news, I'm like, Birthday Treat is going to happen. We're on our way.
Yeah. It's a strange one because like a couple of years ago, like when the seed of the idea came in for Birthday Treat, I think my friend and I were just, when you have those conversations when you're in a pub or whatever sort of thing, and you're talking about like, if you had a superpower, what would it be? I was talking to a friend, and this was the actual seed of the idea of Birthday Treat was like, if you committed any crime, and you could get away with it, what crime would you commit? And you go from like, robbing banks to do this, do that, whatever sort of thing. And that was the original kind of concept of Birthday Treat. It was essentially like, if you could do anything and get away with it, like what would you do? And that was like, I mean, that was about 5 years ago now, I think. And so much has happened since then. So many crazy things in the real world. A pandemic, people in power, like stuff like this. It's just like it's beyond ridiculous. And I think that's, for a strength of the book, that's what kind of makes it work, because like this could possibly in the realms of happening. So yeah, it's a weird one. It's a strange one, but I'm beguiled by the strange and the eerie and the unknown. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really bonkers. And it's as I was reading Birthday Treat, between the chapters, and I'll try and be as non-spoiler as possible, but between the chapters there are like social media posts of people and it's what you would hear people say or you've already heard people say or read people say. And there are some other ones like these reality TV shows that I actually gave me a pause and said, is this a real thing? Because I just could have sworn I've heard of some of these ideas for these reality shows, but yeah, I was. Where did those come from? Did you just make those up in your mind, or?
So yeah, so as part of so in between each chapter, there's like a kind of almost like a gimlet of like the kind of social atmosphere of what's going on, and with social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever kind of platform that you have, there's always so much like weird stuff going on. But the main sort of encouragement there was like from the Running Man, like like RoboCop. Do you remember RoboCop, like where Paul Verhoeven's like at the start, where it was like all these kind of like broadcasts and like we can fix your heart with this like thing that they have. I was always inspired by those type of like infomercial sort of segues. And then when you have like the two reporters in like, for example, RoboCop, and they're like talking about like, this, nuclear holocaust thing, but then, and now another news, and then they go into like the thing. That stuff always intrigued me. and then like say with the Running Man, like you had like with the film as well as the Stephen King book sort of thing, but like with the film in particular, you had those kind of instances where it was like, you know, climbing for cash and stuff like that, and you have this gas and dogs at the bottom. That stuff was always just that it just really kind of made me made me laugh basically. So I thought like if I can put this in like in sub chapters to kind of expand the world of Birthday Treat, so it kind of like without having to go into too much depth of the narrative, because basically in the book you have like three main characters, and I knew like to begin with like this could be a kind of hefty book, so I kind of wanted to kind of do a kind of world building in between that wasn't like in your face, but it kind of showcased what was going on in the world, if that makes sense. So once again, going back to like what we were saying, like, you know, in real world times, crazy things going on. In this world, I just thought like, you know, if you have that kind of social media feed, if you have like these Twitter, like people talking about the kind of Birthday Treat, this Alice, for example, who's going on the run, you know, that would be like the kind of hashtag find Alice and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was, I just thought it would be a little kind of a little crux of the world building, but also at the same time not be too disparaging. Like you could read that kind of like in between the chapters. There's just a little nugget of information that kind of just makes you feel a bit more embroiled in the world of Birthday Treat. Yeah.
And before I want to ask you about. Well, I want to just give a summary for those who aren't familiar with Birthday Treat, because they might be wondering what the hell are they talking about. But before we get into that, there's a mug, because you mentioned RoboCop. There's a mug that I don't know why I haven't bought it yet, but it's just a little mug that says, "Remember when RoboCop shot that guy in the dick?" I don't know why I don't own that mug. It's awesome, but anyway,
You should get it, man. You
yeah,
should get it,
I
definitely.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know why I don't have it yet. Like, it'd be great. It'd be great. It's just the best mug. I don't know why I don't own it. But so for those people who aren't familiar with Birthday Treat, because I mean they might be wondering what are they talking about Birthday Treats. So what's the pitch for Birthday Treat?
So the pitch for Birthday Treat, I guess, would be in the kind of like in a parallel sort of universe, in a kind of Alan Moore style, V for Vendetta style way. The UK in the UK, there has been like a paradigm shift. The government has kind of fallen, and a new kind of totalitarian sort of like government has arisen, and that's like the network. And they're essentially like if Netflix was on acid, essentially, and they, you know, Netflix kind of, or Disney, for example, kind of came together and just basically started ruling the country. So you have this kind of like country that's dictated by entertainment in a kind of way. So it's a little bit, I would say the elevator pitch would be like, it's a bit like The Purge, it's a bit like Running Man, it's a bit like, you know, 1984. It's dystopian in nature. You have these, basically this network has come into power. So you have essentially there's been looting, there's been rioting, and to quell the discourse, if you will, the network have basically pitched this kind of idea where it's like, you know, at some point in your life, maybe it's like a lottery, when it's your birthday, you get your birthday treat, which basically means you can commit any crime, whatever you want, within certain paradigms, sort of thing. But like, and there's no consequence. So you basically you could be like your 30th birthday, and like you wake up and like there's these agents at the door, and they give this boiler suit, and you wear this boiler suit, and then you can commit any crime without consequence. So you could go, like, if you have like a boss that you really hate, you could go kill that boss. And then the next day you could go back into work, and it'd be like, hey, everyone knows what's happened, but like, you know, that's your treat. Also at the same time, there's like this kind of underground movement that wants to kind of quell this kind of stuff. They don't like the whole aspect of like this totalitarian government sort of like taking charge. Then you've got this everyday man called George, who's just like going through the mill. You've got this like sort of person, Alice, who's like trying to break against everything there. And you have this like network agent who's going to kind of find her, because Alice has basically forgot, like basically if you decide not to take your birthday treat, because it's once again, it's a diplomatic country that we live in. If you decide not to take your birthday treat, that's fine. You don't have to, but then you get entered into this kind of reality style TV game, which basically means that you're on the run. It's like Hunted, essentially. If anyone's familiar with Hunted in the UK, like you go on the run for like 5 days. If you survive 5 days without being caught by network agents or the public, then you win like like a lottery type of thing. You win like £500,000 or £5 million or whatever it may be, sort of thing. But it's very difficult. One person has survived that. But it kind of goes into the kind of intrigue of that. So that's it's very very densely thing. But there you go. That's the pitch, I guess. Yeah.
I was really surprised that you went into so much detail with the world, because you could have just kind of glazed over a lot of the details, but you went really deep into it. So I was impressed with how deep you went into it. And there was a lot of things that I think people could have taken out of it and said, this doesn't make sense because this would happen. But all those, anything I can think of was there was an explanation for everything that would make me question or make me think that something doesn't make sense.
It's a hard one because I'm one of those kind of people that. So I had like obviously in the kind of beta phase of when I was doing this, I was talking to a lot of friends and basically saying like, what do you think of this idea? Is this any good? I don't know. And a lot of people then came back to me and were like saying like, but what about this? What about that? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm one of those kind of people, I like to kind of fill in details, but I don't want to overwhelm as well, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that fine line of like saying, welcome into this world, and people read it, and I hope that I've done the job in terms of saying, hey, if you can believe in this world, that's all I ask for. Essentially though, if you start to question it too much, like anything, it's going to kind of fall apart, and I'm going to hold my hands up. And there's a lot of kind of probably plot holes that are in the book, that's my own fault. But like, I was trying to sort of, as I was writing it, I was like trying to sort of gauge kind of levels.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me. And there was a point where I was like, if I do this too much, I'm just never going to end, because it could go on for so long. It could be like, what about this rule? What about that rule? What about this? What about that? You have to leave a little bit of ambiguity, sort of like in terms of suspension of disbelief,
Mm-hmm.
because I think already like the kind of world is already a little bit fantastical. So if people are reading it, and if you get to a kind of point where it's like, well, this just isn't realistic, then I've lost you, and I haven't done my job properly, sort of thing. But also at the same time, you're reading it and you think, actually, I'm getting caught up in it, and you're getting intrigued by it and stuff. Then good times.
Yeah. And how do you know when to drop those little bits of information in? Like, how do you know when to how to kind of fill those gaps the reader might have in their head or be wondering about it? How do you know when to drop those in?
It's a good question. Well, so for example, I always knew there was going to be like a three main character arc sort of thing. I wanted George to be the kind of everyday man who's going through this thing, and I wanted his perspective, his POV, to be like what a normal person in this reality would be kind of doing. Alice was like the rebellious one. She was the one who was going to be like the action orientated chapters. So for example, she's like foregone her birthday treat, so therefore she's on the run. So I knew that like her storyline, her arc was going to be more action packed, if you will. And then with Agent Kavanagh, like he was going to be like the kind of antagonist, like trying to kind of like get all the loose ends together, sort of thing, and like combine it all together. So in that respect, it was I think I just had like my main kind of point was like, I don't know how other writers plot their kind of thread. Usually for me, I have like a seed of an idea, and then from that I kind of germinate towards other things. There might be, it's like if you have like a sieve, and like you kind of put things in the sieve, and like things will shake out. There's a lot of times when I have ideas like, oh, this could be good, and then it doesn't go anywhere. Other times it might be, well, this could work within this world. So yeah, it was a lot of toing and froing in that regards. But then at the end of the day, I was like, look, we need to, you need to have this happen. You need to get to point B to C to D, etc., etc. Whilst also trying to establish these kind of like characters that you want the reader to empathize with. Like I wanted George to be like that everyday man who you could see yourself being in a kind of situation. So he has flights of fancy. There are certain points in the novel where he feels like he could be like a kind of superhero type of character when there are certain things, but then he doesn't do anything because that's what you would do. There's one scene in particular, like at the very beginning, where he's at a train station, and someone who has their birthday treat comes in to the train station, and he has this kind of fantasy of like what he would do, but then it turns out that like he's just standing like everyone else, like sheeple type people, and he's like just watching it as it goes because it's become so normal, like the everyday normal. Like we talk about like the pandemic sort of thing, like for 2.5 years now, this is the new normal. And this is the whole point with birthday treat. Like this is the fascinating thing I think about it as well, because it's not too. At the time when I started writing it, I thought it was quite fantastical, but now it's like actually, when people accept the new norm, then it becomes normal. So yeah,
and it's funny you bring that up because I thought too that a book like this you could have been heavy handed with the kind of the themes of but you wrote that line pretty good where it could, there are things to pick up on, but you can just enjoy it for what it is and not feel like you're being banged over the head with some type of message or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I didn't want to get political. I'm not a political person per se, like in terms of if there's an agenda, and like listen, a lot of writers have a lot of agendas. A lot of writers want to sort of portray a message. I didn't want to do that at all. I wanted to kind of like just sort of throw it out there. I was more kind of character driven. I was more like, this is the kind of setting. This is just what's happening. This is how people are dealing with it, sort of thing. If people read it and sort of like come up with their own basis or anything like that, then great, that's fantastic in my experience. But no, there was no like agenda as such. There was no like I'm coming out to kind of write this message or anything like that, because I always feel like you look at Hollywood these days and like you look at the kind of stuff that they're doing, it's like there's such an agenda there, and it's like, oh man, it's not good. And you can see it. People are sort of voting with their feet. People aren't going to cinemas to watch certain films by certain companies because they know that like there's a message that they want to show, and it's like when you kind of hammer it home, it's too much. So
I'm actually okay with the message, even if I don't agree with it. I'm okay with it as long as the story comes first. But if
yeah,
there's
definitely.
there's
If it's done in the kind of way of, I'm just thinking of something in particular, like the Book of Boba Fett, for example. I'm going Star Wars. I'm going to go like Disney and Star Wars at the moment. Like I don't know if you've watched the series.
no.
Sort of thing, like it's you've taken this kind of nostalgic character, and this is the thing that Disney are very good. They want to play to your nostalgia sort of thing. So they'll take these legacy characters, and like with Boba Fett sort of thing, for example, they've made him into, so in the original trilogy, he was like this kind of badass, cold ass assassin, and now he's like this kind of no, I just want to make everyone happy sort of thing. And in a kind of weird way, he's become like a pale imitation of his original self, if that makes sense. It's a shaky ground to kind of walk on, but at the same time, I think with the birthday treat, for example, it's new IP in that respect. Maybe I should give that to Netflix and see what they say and see if they want to do something with it.
It would make a perfect series. I know that, but they should.
I would like, I mean, if you've seen like Dennis Utopia, not the American version, the UK version. That's just it's so good, sublime. I love
Really?
Utopia. Yeah,
Oh,
you should check it. Like there was they did the remake recently, the American remake of Utopia, which I think was with I can't remember her name. The woman I can't remember off the top of my head. They basically did like an American remake of the British Dennis Kelly one, and I watched about 2 episodes and I couldn't watch any more because it was a travesty. If you want to watch a really good sort of dystopian, funny, but also like now with pandemic, it's there's a really there's a really good message in terms of like Utopia. Watch the UK version, definitely.
hmm.
It's good.
Yeah, I think I found the John Cusack is in it in the American version. Is
That's
that?
the remake one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't watch that.
Oh yeah.
Pants.
Why didn't they turn Jabba the Hutt into a friendly the friendly neighborhood fat guy? Wouldn't that be great if they just made Jabba the Hutt into a hero and wants to make everybody
But
happy?
that's
That
the
would be
thing.
great.
Like, if this is where we're going to now. Like, you're bringing characters that have you know from 30 years ago have had a particular sort of way about them, and then they've changed characters. I remember like watching the new Star Wars. Not the prequels, the new ones with like Kylo Ren and stuff like that. And it was just like there was that whole thing with Luke Skywalker, like making him like this curmudgeony sort of like old man who's like regrets and stuff like that, and blah blah blah. And it's interesting because like you would think that like this guy who's trained all these Jedi sort of thing, and from his Ben Kenobi, like and all that kind of stuff, whatever sort of thing. Like it's just there seems to be this kind of thing in Hollywood now of like, hey, we want to ring the nostalgia bell. That's how we're going to get you back to what was the one recently?
Was
Well, like
it
Texas Chainsaw Massacre just been
oh,
released, right? On Netflix. I haven't watched it yet. But there's this whole thing with from what I have heard, they're bringing back the I can't remember her name, the character from the first film who survived, and she's like this Laurie Strode type character. So like if you've seen Halloween and Halloween Kills and all that kind of stuff, then they're basically going right. Here's a formula that's working in the horror industry. We're going to bring back some legacy characters, and now just because we bring them back and they're going to be like this badass type things, then it's going to work. It's like that. Sometimes that's not the way it goes. I don't know. I haven't seen the Halloween. The new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but there's been so many Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the recent remake with Jessica Biel and stuff like that, and then I think there was something another one as well, and it's just like, well, what are you doing differently? Like, I love the kind of concept of like this kind of family. I think Resident Evil 7 did it really well. The video game sort of thing where they had this kind of Texas Chainsaw type family, and then like every zone you go into is like a kind of like you have these different personas of like different people and stuff like that, and it works really well. So you need to kind of just change it up a little bit. There needs to be originality, and I don't think at the moment there's a lot going on there with that. So yeah.
the Star Wars movies are tough because on one hand I appreciate them taking the chance to try and subvert expectations, but I think they went a little too far. They went, it's that fine line where you don't want to just give. In a way, I kind of thought it was like we're not going to give you what you expect, which I admire, but they swung and missed on that one. I think.
Yeah, I mean, like with the sequels, with the Ray and stuff like that sort of thing. Yeah, they played it safe.
Yeah,
They
I
played it
think.
safe, and it was like you need to kind of like I'm sure George Lucas has a archive of like ideas that didn't kind of come to concept that you could like take on and stuff like that. Yeah, but it didn't really work in that respect. So, but I love, it's one of these kind of weird, like Mandalorian. Love the Mandalorian. Love that kind of whole like Western sort of like vibe that they kind of gave to it, and that was something. Here's a new character,
Mm.
but you're doing this kind of spaghetti Western type thing mixed with the sci-fi. I love that. I love that stuff. I think that's great. I think that's fantastic. You got the kind of like, Baby Grogu, which is like the kind of what's it? Not Seven Samurai, the samurai film sort of thing that's like based on sort of thing where it's like the child in the pram and stuff like that. Great, fantastic. You have to have inspiration. Like there's no. I'm sure Steve, like you've probably interviewed so many people on this channel sort of thing where the inspiration for something has come from someone. And listen, at the end of the day, still take ownership of something, but make it something new. That's what I like. That's what I like about you can take a concept of anything and you can make it new. Like how many people have like the vampire, like I've got this poster Nosferatu and the old thing, but like the vampire sort of thing. There's so many new ways of like doing that kind of thing. The werewolf thing, you can do that. Twilight Zone sort of stuff. There's so many different things that you can take and mold, but then you have to make it new because audiences now are like so clued up about everything. So you have to kind of like make your own kind of ground. And I think it's an odd one as well, because at the same time you have this kind of like Hollywood, for example, we're talking about movies again sort of thing, but like they're so adverse at like taking on new IPs and like new ideas because it might not work. Okay, fine, fair enough. There's an argument that could be had about like taking existing IPs of like different things. Like look at the Predator, for example, and there's a new Predator film coming out, which is meant to be like about the first Predator that comes to Earth, and it's like tribal sort of like people going on there. I'm looking at it, I'm going, I don't know, I don't know, because like as much as my heart is in the original Predator sort of thing, with just a bunch of commandos in the jungle, but you look at it now with 2022 eyes, and it's like, well, here's a bunch of like jacked up steroid men in the jungle, and it's like that's not the kind of thing do you know what I mean? It's a weird one because there's so many different aspects to look at now. Even like Alien franchise, for example, Alien Covenant wasn't great. But I'm hoping for like the last film that will set Covenant to the original Alien and bring it all together. I'm hoping Ridley Scott does that because I'm a fan of the franchise. So there's always that kind of thing. I think the older you get, the jaded you get, sort of thing. But also at the same time, bring us something new, bring us something exciting.
I'm not too thrilled about the new Alien TV series that's being planned, though. Have you heard about that one?
Yeah, I'm in two minds. I'll be honest, because I like the fact that it's going to be more about the company and like what's going on. I'd be intrigued by it, and I believe the writer is Drew. What's his name? Drew
from Fargo.
Yeah,
yeah.
Good. I'm sort of like I'm sitting doing this, going, I think you have to be. This is the whole thing now, because like once again, it's like any kind of like old age kind of boogeyman type character, like Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Mike Myers. Mike Myers, not Mike Myers. But like any kind of like boogeyman character from the 80s. There is a kind of I think Ridley Scott even said this as well. It's like the beast is done. Like H.R. Geiger Alien is now like it's so cultivated in our culture now that it's not scary anymore. So you need to bring something else to the table. And I could see that was what they were trying to do with Prometheus and with Covenant and stuff like that. But also at the same time with a series. I think this series is going to be more like sort of Succession in a kind of way, if that makes sense. So it's going to be like Weyland-Yutani. Like we've always seen like Weyland-Yutani as like the company that is like the bad company, and I'm always interested in like they've never even like with like Dark Horse Comics, now Marvel sort of thing, but like even with the comics, there was never like we never really found out about Weyland-Yutani, and I'm really intrigued by the company and like finding out more about the company. as opposed to just having a kind of people in space and there's an alien running around sort of thing. So that is the part that interests me. The other part, though, that I'm a little bit concerned about is how are you going to get the kind of mixture of like tension? Is this going to be like a horror thing? Is this going to be, like a kind of? I'm just I don't know what they're pitching it as. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Yeah, I think. Well, I have two concerns. The first one is I'm not sure that. Well, it's going to screw up the timeline because you know, it's good. It's not going to make any sense. And
Mm.
on the other hand, because you mentioned the Utani Corporation or the Weyland Utani, and as you were saying that, I thought before Prometheus, we always wondered where is the space jockey from? I want to know where is this being from? And when we found out, it's like I wish I didn't. I wish I never knew.
Yeah, I was just about to say like, like, there are so many things. It was like when we in the original Alien, when you saw the space jockey, it was like, what is this thing? What is this what is, we don't know. Like, and there's sometimes where ambiguity is like it's better to not know. When you have to explain things like the boogeyman in that respect, it's like it loses an impact. So
Hmm.
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Like, I don't know. I don't know where they can go, sort of thing. I'll be intrigued by it, but also at the same time, I don't know. Yeah, I think certain franchises are done and they should leave them now. And it should be like there should be something new. Like I just said, like looking back at like the 80s, you have like Freddy Krueger, you have like Jason Voorhees, you have the Alien, you have the Predator. In the last 5 years, Steve, like, can you think of any new like boogeyman type character that you've actually gone like, wow, this is really good?
That's a good question. You're putting me on the spot. I'm trying to think. There's got to be some. I'll think of something. There's got to be some boogeyman or creature. What about you?
Um, yeah, no,
Yeah, I can't think. Nothing comes to
I can't think
mind.
of. But there's been certain. I like things like, for example, it's not like a boogeyman type character, but like the Saw like series, but like what
Mm.
was it, Escape Room? I like the escape room films that they've done recently. But that's not like a boogeyman character. Yeah, boogeyman character. No, there hasn't. I mean, that's what I mean. There has to be like there must be like a new in the 2020s. There has to be like these new boogeyman type characters.
If you would have asked me this like 2 years ago, I may have said the Nun or
I like the
the little.
Conjuring series.
But
Yeah,
they really screwed that movie up. That ruined the
yeah.
whole story.
I think that was just a Bloomhouse like franchise. Like they were like, we're on something good here. With was it the Conjuring, wasn't it? And then they sort of had the Annabelle and the Nun and what was the other one?
There's another one they're making, the
Yeah,
Thin Man or something like that.
yeah. And I listen, I enjoy those films, but also at the same time, it's personally it's not
Not
my type
iconic.
of horror. Like,
That's true.
I prefer the kind of like psychological kind of. I recently watched The Empty Man, for example. I don't know if you've seen The Empty Man.
I have. That's an
Yeah,
interesting movie.
it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
It's not. How would you kind of put that? Because it's not like it's. I love the kind of concept, and I love the first part where they're in the Himalayas and stuff like that, and the people are like, and there's this like, and it was a very. I will be me and my girlfriend sort of thing. We were watching it, and it was late, and we had a few drinks, sort of thing. So at the part by the end, I was like going, "What is going on? I'm not entirely sure what's going on, but I like what's going on." Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but I kind of like where it's going, kind of thing. She was like, "No, I don't like it. I don't like it at all." She's like, she wants to be more like just have there's this thing, it's coming after you, da da da. But there's some really good shots, like in the bridge, and like you have this kind of like darkness, and
Mhm.
like you see the sounds. In terms of like that, I do love the kind of whole like tension building. Um, and even with the Empty Man, it kind of has this kind of creepy pasta vibe to it, where it's like, you know, like where Slender Man like originally came from, terms like that sort of thing. Um, and listen, even the kind of creepypasta sort of stuff has a lot of things going for it. Like we're talking about boogeymen, like you have Siren Head, you got Slender Man, like you have these new characters that have like come out from like just people like just basically like writing and saying like this is a new beast, a new thing, and I love that. I think that's great. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think The Empty Man is almost like 3 movies in one, because it's the first part, and then it totally shifts gears, and then it's almost like a teenage slasher for a little bit, and then it goes into the psychological,
Yeah,
just really, really different movie.
it is a kind of yeah weirdly, I'd say weirdly paced, and I think that's where it might lose a few people. It's a very slow burny sort of film, but I love the sort of slow burny films like what's it Andrew Tchaikovsky, like Stalker, and they're very slow burn films, but also very philosophical and you know question. I love films that you can like when you. I love films where I can like leave the cinema with my friends and like we go to a pub and then we just talk about it. That's the best kind of film you can ever have. The worst film is like coming out and going like that was dog shit. Like I nothing to say about that. I love the films where you can come out of it and go like, what? Like what happened here? And like, was this thing? Because everyone has their own opinions and stuff, and that's what I love about that as well. It's like there's so many times where I've been like, oh, okay, I can see what's happened here. And then someone will say something to me like, but what about this? And I was like, oh, that blew yeah, that's now changed my perspective on everything. Those type of I love that. I love that in cinema. And I love it. It's great. Definitely.
Have you seen The House That Jack Built?
I have not, but I do want to see it. It's one of those ones that you get a film where it's like on the radar and it's like what's his name? I know
The
can't remember his
director?
name. Yeah.
Yeah, Von
Um,
Trier or Von
yeah,
Trier?
it is one of those films that has been like, I need to see it. And I've been told I've heard a lot of stuff about it, but I have not yet seen it. So yeah.
That's an
You
interesting one.
recommend it?
Uh, it is, if you want if you want a conversation after a movie, then that's one to check out.
To
It
have.
is pretty disturbing, but I've read Birthday Treat, you can handle it.
If you've read Birthday Treat, you can handle everything afterwards. It's all good.
Yeah, and I was surprised how funny Birthday Treat is. I definitely saw your humor in the book. I didn't expect it to be so funny.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there was. I've. I think when I was writing it, I was like, this is kind of like a ludicrous thing going on. So there has to be that kind of humor. And I do want to make. I do want it to be like too uh, abrasive. I didn't want the humor to be like too like in your face, but I wanted to be like maybe this is a British thing. I don't know, but I just wanted to be this underlying sort of like not sarcastic, but like an underlying sort of humoristic sort of vibe to it as well. So there is that. Hopefully, I'm glad you said that, man. That's it's really nice. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty. It's more of a dark kind of droll humor, but I really dug
Oh
it.
yeah, I have a very dry sense of humor. I think, and I love. I mentioned earlier that there's there's a storm going on apparently at the moment, sort of thing, and there are a lot of people. There's a lot of videos going around at the moment, with just people falling down because they're just like walking. They're trying to walk, and they're doing this like, oh, 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 no, they fall down. I have a very kind of base reptilian sort of humor when it comes to like people falling over. I'm gonna say it, but also at the same time, I love the kind of dry wit of like a lot of like authors that are like just dry humor. Yeah, that's I tried to kind of like put that in there, but not too much. It like breaks from the actual from what's going on. So
Yeah. I think a story like this almost needs a little bit, just enough humor to
yeah, a little
break
bit,
it. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what has this experience been like for you? Because it was your first novel, right? That you released.
Yeah, so I originally started this, as I said, about I think 3-4 years ago, and it was a long process because at my heart I'm an apathetic, lazy person. So it took a while to kind of get the ideas down pat and put it all together. But I think once I had my idea of where it was going, it kind of picked up pace. And then obviously the pandemic happened, and then I was like, well, I'm at home a lot now, so I can write a lot more. And that's where the kind of main part of it kind of came through. Um, Funny enough, I have now that's happened. I've got an anthology that's going to be coming out in the next couple of months, short stories, because myself and two friends, Ross and Tom, we were doing Zoom calls every week. We wanted to kind of try and keep our creative juices flowing essentially. So what we would do is like we would every week we would come together and we would give each other a title, like whatever, we'd choose a title each of us, and then like the next week we'd come back with a short story, and then through that kind of process, I now have like an anthology. So I have my next anthology ready to go. I'm just kind of going through it at the moment, editing it and stuff like that. And it's a bit weird. Some stories will be it's that weird thing. Like, so Birthday Treat, I would call a dystopian thriller. I don't know, a dystopian novel. The next one I've got is going to be called Catbox. It's like an anthology, but it's very different. Like some of the stories are light-hearted, some of them are quite surreal, some of them are very kind of Twilight Zone, some of them are, just stories of things. I know sometimes trying to pigeonhole that into a thing is a bit weird. So we'll see how it goes. But then I also have another my next novel that I have an idea for that I'm going to be doing. Is more horror based. So it's going to be a horror.
When are we getting the follow up?
Well, so there's
leave me hanging like this.
Well, we'll see what happens. Certain people have turned around to me and said, like, "Oh, you could do a sequel to this." And I was like, "Yeah, I could," but I don't know. All right, Steve, where do you think it would go? Where do you think that after the end of things, where do you think people could? There is a character. I won't spoil it for people who haven't read it, but there is a character, one of the three main ones that I've spoken about, like who I've left it ambiguous whether they're alive or not.
Yeah,
Shall we say?
yeah. I want to. In a way, I want to know, but in a way, I don't want to. Just like we were talking about. So
Yeah.
in a way, it keeps you
I
thinking.
do have an idea of a sequel, but I don't know. Like, do you remember like Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome? I think it would go along those lines. Like, basically, society is broken down completely, and it's like a kind of dog eat dog world sort of thing. That's what I'm thinking. If a sequel would happen,
You can even. I'm not that I'm. I'm just a guy who likes to read books. I have no idea
yeah,
about any of the other stuff, but I do see lots of stories in this world. So you could even do like a short story anthology based in this world.
yeah. To be honest, until you just said that, I didn't really think of anything like that. But it's interesting.
Lots of different
Yeah.
perspectives that could, stories to be told from the network or from just regular old Joes or from agents or,
I like that.
people on
That's
their
a good
birthday
idea.
treat, what they decide to do or not.
I would. I mean, I would like to sort of explore more of that because once again, like, there's a lot of different things going on in the book, sort of thing. So I didn't want to like hang on onto one too many things, but there could be, yeah. Don't put ideas in my head, Steve. Because I'll just like I'll go away and yeah.
And
We'll
with
see.
your
I think where my head is at the moment is I'm going to do this horror novel, and then after that, we'll see. It might be one of those kind of seeds that gets put in again, and then we'll see if there's another idea then, or if if there's people that read the book and they like it and they're thinking of like different things, then yeah, I would love to be like a branching out having different areas of like, being in the kind of the network and like seeing how it actually gets the birthday treats get put across. Um, People who resist against it, who want to, yeah, hmm, interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, lots of
Mm.
stories there. And if you can go back, if you could go back and talk to yourself at this time last year, let's just say,
Yeah.
what advice would you give yourself about the book, or just the public, publishing it, or whatever it may be? What's a tip you would give yourself?
Um, I think the advice I would give to a younger version of myself would be don't think too much about what you're doing, just do it. There's a lot of, I think a lot of people who write, for example, doubt themselves.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people kind of think to themselves, like, well, this isn't any good. What I'm writing is complete dog shit, sort of thing. Don't do that. Just do it. There's a lot of books that I've read that there's that kind of weird thing of like you read something and you think, oh, I was really looking forward to this, and you get disappointed because the writing, whether the technicality version of it, sort of thing, or the story arc of it, just doesn't grab you, and you're like, well, I could do this. Why not? So yeah, it's that weird thing of there's a lot of you know um, I would say like don't worry about it's not hubris as such. It's not pride. It's more the kind of case of like don't worry about whatever happens. Like, for example, I don't have an agent. I don't have, I self-published Birthday Tree. And that's only because of the fact that, once again, I said I'm an apathetic, lazy person. And I could sort of send off, you know, um, cover letters to like people and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I was like, listen, I just like to write. I love to write. And at the end of the day, like if I have this story and if it's conceived, if it's written well and it's edited and everything like that, then fine. Then fuck it, I'll publish it, sort of thing. So that's what I did. Um, and I think there's a lot of people probably in that kind of position where they're like questioning themselves and they're like saying to themselves like, well, this isn't good. This is I'm going to shelve this. I'm going to put this on the don't do it. Fuck it. What's the worst can happen? Yeah.
I do wonder, hearing your answer, I do wonder how much of that doubt is because writing is such a solitary experience.
Um,
'Cause you're
it's
not in
day
the
to day
same.
though, isn't it? That's the
Yeah.
thing. I think like you can have I've had days where I'll be like I'm in a writing mood and I'll sit there and I can be there for like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, whatever it may be. And from that 2, 4, 5 hours, I could either accomplish 1,000 words or 2,000 words or 3,000 words or 4,000 or five or six or whatever sort of thing, whether it may be. Other times I might be very imposter syndrome and be like, no, there's no point. There's no point doing this. It's a day to day thing. I'm not saying like I'm gonna go into like mental health and stuff like that. I don't personally. Everyone has their own ways of working. Um, some people have like a routine. I think there was a Guardian article that I read about this woman who was quite fascinating. She chose certain authors and their routines of how they wrote. So, for example, you have like this one person who wakes up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, goes for a swim every morning, and then at like 9 o'clock comes in, works for like 2 hours, and then has lunch, and then comes back and then you have this other person who wakes up at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon and then writes for like all that kind of stuff. It's fascinating because at the end of the day, I think do what works for you.
Mhm.
Like, I'm a person. I think you need to have a kind of structured regime to a certain extent, and I think it works for like if you have like say you have like a family of like you've got like 3 kids, um, and you know that like time is precious in that kind of respect, because obviously, in the mornings it's like getting the kids up and and getting to school and that kind of stuff, and then you got work. Most people are going to have like a 9 to 5 sort of job, so then you come back and then you got to have dinner and stuff like that and make sure that so really your time is limited. So I think a lot of people then are more like structured to like, look, I've got this window, this time frame of like maybe 10 to 11 or whatever it may be. So I've got an hour that I can do writing. Boom, do it. And sometimes you don't want to do that. Sometimes you're like, I'm not in the mood now. I'm knackered. I've just had this day. Like, I'm one of those kind of people. Myself personally, I'm personally more of a night owl than I am a kind of day guy. So I personally write in the evening as to opposed to like morning and stuff. And I hate that because I think I should probably be that person where I wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and go like, look, I could probably write, even if I don't write, if I'm just looking at a blank page with the cursor just like blinking for 3 hours, I'd rather be like, look, but I'm up at like 6 or I'm up at 7 and I'm there and I'm doing it, sort of thing. I'm just not that kind of person because I'm not a morning person. I'm really not a morning person. So yeah, I'm a night owl in that respect. Yeah.
It's as an outsider, because I'm, just looking at how authors, how they have to find what works for them, and they kind of have to get this self motivation to sit down and to focus, because and I think they, you know the self doubt may come in because they're not going into to work or are part of a team where, Joe at work says, I'm really good at this, I should keep going. It's all in your head, so
Yeah.
it's just you.
It's a that's the thing, like it's one of those weird ones where it is a self-motivational, like you have to motivate yourself. And a lot of the time, I think a lot of people, that's where a lot of people have hardships of doing that, because unless you set yourself a routine, then it can be very unstructured, and it can be very like, I have a plan to do this, but hey, this happened, that happens, can't do it, sort of thing. Personally, I would say to anyone who's, you know I'm sure a lot of people have their own routine, have their own kind of thing going on, so they know how they're going to do stuff. um so there's no point of me sort of like telling like how your aunt to suck lemons and that kind of stuff. But also at the same time, it's like, well, just kind of do what works for you. If you know you're a morning person, then maybe with your kind of, if you go running in the morning sort of thing, take half an hour off from that and then sit down and just, even if you're the prime example I would give is like, even if you're going to sit down and you don't have the motivation, but you're just seeing that blinking cursor, something could come from that. Whether you're listening to like, your sweet, rock kind of thing going like in the background and stuff like that, or you're just sitting there and going like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm writing about. Like, you'll find that by just sitting there in front of the blank screen, things will occur,
Hmm.
I think. Yeah.
Speaking of music, do you listen to music while you write, or during your creative process?
I can't listen to music with vocals.
Hmm.
That distracts me. I prefer like sort of like you know what's the word I'm looking for? Like the sort of like
Like, like instrumental,
background
or
sort of music. Yeah,
yeah.
like just um what's the word I'm looking for? Not atmospheric, that's not the right word. But like
Ambient, like ambience or ambient music.
yeah, like ambient sort of music. Like if it and yeah, if I'm in a mood for, if I'm writing something that I think is going to be particularly dark or whatever, I'll look for, sort of ambient music that's like horror music sort of thing, but it's not like yeah, that's I can't I'm one of those kind of, my head doesn't work that way. Of like, if I'm writing something and I'm listening to something with words, it jumbles my mind up and I can't do it. I'd rather, I'm one of those kind of people though that will have like, those kind of like YouTube videos of like 7 hours of crackling music in the fireplace, and rain falling. And that's my jam. Yeah, that's what I go to. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's so interesting to me how everyone has the, some people like to listen to certain types of music while they're writing certain scenes, or
Mm.
it's interesting how different minds work with that process.
It's interesting. Like I think a friend of mine, Ross Jeffrey, sort of thing that you've interviewed as well, sort of thing. Like I think he listens to a lot of like horror type of style, ambient sort of music in the background. Um, and yeah, like it can be. I think it can be quite when you're sort of sitting there and you're like, I wanna get this thing, and you have these like the strings going on, the kind of like trickling strings, or the sharp kind of violin sort of hits and stuff like that. It's very interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's sometimes, yeah, I kind of feel. I think music does add to the kind of like more the motivation of the writer, I guess, if you will, when you're kind of sitting there and you're like, hey, I want to, the beats, the pauses, the dramatic sort of stuff that's going on. It does, I think it resonates a little bit. I think it helps, definitely. But also at the same time, if you don't want music, you don't need music, sort of thing. Like you just do you, sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. And speaking of Ross Jeffrey, how was how's the Kickstarter doing at Storgy?
We got the Kickstarter, so yeah, so it was yeah, we this is our final Ferrari, I think, I guess. So we're going to be what are we now? February. On the 1st of March, we're going to be launching our short story competition.
Mm.
It's called Return to Shadow Creek. We basically, a couple of years ago, we came up with an idea of like setting this kind of town called Shadow Creek, which was meant to be like a kind of sort of HP Lovecrafty sort of like Innsmouth sort of town, if you will, like a Twilight Zone, a shard of this place of darkness in this kind of like the world where weird things happen. And the whole idea of the competition was like, if so, for example, Steve, if you entered the competition, what would happen is we would give you a random character, a random location, and the last competition was a random item, and from that you'd have to construct your own short story. So we always kind of thought like we with a lot of short stories you get a lot of like here's the theme. The theme is Coca-Cola. It's like, all right, okay,
Hmm.
cool, I'll do that, whatever sort of thing. We wanted to give like more of a more weight, if you will, sort of thing. So we basically said like, we constructed these kind of character packs. So we had all these kind of characters. So you'd have like the kind of the lighthouse keeper guy. You'd have like the school teacher who maybe harbored a mystery about her, sort of thing. You'd have like the sheriff. All these kind of like character perks, and then in that character sheet, if you went on the website, you'd see the kind of character sheets, and maybe they'd have like a bit of a dark past, maybe they'd have like a kind of what you want to call it, a history, like a police history, like if you commit a crime type of thing. All these things. And then, yeah, so that resonated very well with a lot of people, I think. And then through that, we made this anthology called Shadow Creek. And there wasn't really like a storyline. It was like if you see like a Twilight Zone or a Black Mirror sort of thing, it was like episodic stories based in this town. So we had this anthology. And so for this one, we've kind of tried to kind of like meld it a little bit more, sort of thing. So there may be more of a narrative arc now, but also at the same time, we want to keep that kind of spontaneity of like having people like enter and give them like a character, give them a location, and give them like an instant. So there will be hopefully, and this is the beauty of it. So because we don't know, because there's obviously going to be like a lot of different kind of story threads coming through. But we're hoping for a kind of narrative arc through this anthology. It might not work. We'll see. It's an experiment, but that's what I love about it. I love the experimentation of it. But yeah, it's hopefully going to be like a really good thing. and we're unveiling that on the 1st of March. So that will be the launching of the short story competition. And essentially, there will be like a grand for the best story, for example. There will be like £1,000 for the best story.
Hmm.
And also at the same time, all the stories that we put will be put in an anthology, and that will be released. We'll have that kind of published and everything like that under the Storgy banner. So yeah, that'll be good.
Did you say it's the farewell? Did I hear you correctly?
Well, we in terms of like, so we wanted to get like arts council funding
Hmm.
for Storgy, because like we got to a kind of point where we were like, we can't physically, the three of us, like me, Ross and Tom, we've been doing this like for the last like 10 years kind of thing. uh any money that comes through in Storgy gets put out into Storgy, so like with these kind of competitions and stuff like that. But it was at a point now where it was like we need to kind of like try and do more. So we applied for Arts Council funding in the UK. I don't know, like in America, I don't know if you have like a certain sort of thing that's similar to that sort of thing, but it's essentially like the government will aid you with XYZ sort of thing. We put a business plan together, sort of thing. We spent a long time on, but it got declined. So
Hmm.
that's why we had to go to the Kickstarter sort of fund of it. And it's always funny with Kickstarter because it's not a good business model
Hmm.
personally. I think we've done it. This is our third time that we've done it now, and we've succeeded in all three times. But like, you get to a point where it's like you can't keep on falling back on Kickstarter, because like these people that are paying money to, obviously there's pledges, there's rewards and stuff like that. But personally, for myself, I don't like the model of it. Like I'd rather have a kind of business formula sort of thing for it. And yeah, so I think this, when we do the next competition, we've got a few other books. This Kickstarter also relays into some of the other books that Storage are going to be releasing now. So we've got, I think, two other books now that we're going to be releasing through Kickstarter. Thankfully, that we've been able to kind of get the funding for. So we're going to be able to kind of publish two more books from that. But from that point, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of up in the air in terms of like how we go from there as such.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What other options do you have other than something like Kickstarter? There are other avenues you can try.
There are different avenues. Like we could. So I think from our everything is like a learning experience as well, sort of thing. So I think what we learned is we could apply again to the Arts Council funding, but maybe for a bit less than what we were originally planning for. Because obviously a first time applicant, I think we were probably asking for a bit too much than what a first time applicant would ask for. So that's probably why we got declined, in all
Hmm.
honesty. But also at the same time, yeah, there's different avenues that we can go down. I just think at the moment, for me personally, now that with Birthday Treat being out and with this anthology coming out, I kind of think I need to I want to concentrate on myself.
Hmm.
That's going to sound wanky as fuck, but like that's you know no, I do want to kind of concentrate on that, because my role in Storgy was reading a lot of short stories, because that's what we did. Like every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we would release a short story,
Hmm.
and through Submittable, we would get hundreds of short stories through, and I would be the guy that would read them. And personally, I kind of I kind of like the fact that I don't have to do that anymore,
Hmm.
only because the fact that the stories were so good, it got to a point where I couldn't. There were some really good stories. I felt so bad. I felt like bad having to decline stories. I don't like having to decline stories, but it got to a kind of point where I was like, I can't, I I just feel I feel like I feel bad. I feel bad like having someone's put their heart and soul and sweat and tears into the story, and I'm declining it because why? Because it didn't fit a certain field of what I was looking for. You know what I mean? Um, some of the stories you get through are really technically brilliant. Some of the stories that you just didn't have it was a minefield of like accepting and denying. You can obviously you read a story and you're like, wow, it engages you from like A to Z sort of thing, or A to Z, then great, fantastic, it's done its job. But also at the same time, there were so many instances where it was like, this is just on the fence of like being great, but there's just something in it, and I didn't have the time to turn around to the person and say like, look, go back. Maybe here's my notes, because that's the thing as well. Because there were so many stories coming through, I couldn't give like a kind of editorial response in the way that I really wanted to, which was crushing, to be honest with you, because there were so many stories that I've declined where I've been like, look, and there have been times where I've like written like this kind of like, page worth of thing, but that would take up like a couple of hours, and it's literally timing. If I didn't have a 9 to 5 job, then fair enough, then it'd be fine. But like, unfortunately, it was the case of you read a story, if it's good, great, fantastic, it's on the thing. If it's maybe a work in progress, then I'd go back and go like, hey, maybe work on this sort of thing, come back to us when whatever sort of thing. If it's not good, you just decline it. But it got to a point where I was like, I can't do it anymore, sort of thing. So yeah, I'd rather focus on my own stuff and criticize my own work, really. So
On the days where you did read short stories on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, how many stories did you read every day?
So basically, what I would do, my kind of roll call was like, I would like wait a week, wait for those, and then I would try to kind of read them on a Monday. Pardon me. And it's that weird one because like you'd read like a really good story, and you'd be like, oh wow, this is fantastic. And then you'd read another one and you'd be like, wow, this is this is great as well. So you'd sort of like, ping along and go like, oh, this is great, blah blah. But then there also times you'd read like 3 stories in a row that were just like, I can't. After the second page, I can't. I'm getting bored because you have to like. There is a format of the short story form that you have to grip. You have to grip that person, and there'll be a lot of stories where, as I said, like may not be like technically great, but the story was really good, and I'd be invested in it. Literally, if you got me from the first page to the last page, great, good times. But also at the same time, there were a lot of stories that were just maybe went over my head as well because I'm not. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm like the fucking guy who knows everything about short. I don't. That's cool. I'm still learning myself. But also at the same time, it's what works for you. Like I have a genre I like, but also at the same time, I can read a romance story, for example. Like I'm not going to dismiss it just because it's a romance story. I'm not that kind of person. If the story envelopes me and engulfs me in it, sort of thing, then I'm there definitely. It just came to a kind of point, I think, where it was like I can't personally. I feel bad having to sort of turn around and sort of like dismiss or decline a story based on a whimsical like because of this, because of that sort of thing. And it kind of crushes yourself as well, like as me as a writer sort of thing. I think to myself like, well, I've entered stories into short competitions and stuff like that, and yeah, I get rejected, of course you do, sort of thing. But like at the same time, it's like, well, I know what it's like to read the story and have that kind of like thing of like, well, it was just there, but there was something that was just not made it what it was, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I'm curious because I'm sure there's an explanation for it that I'm just not aware of. But with so many stories that were really, really good, but just didn't fit into exactly what you're looking for, could you or what would prevent you from just starting another anthology of a separate, a different anthology that would fit into and release it that way? How does that work?
Well, so we've done so through Storgy. We so during the pandemic, we came up with You Are Not Alone. I think there's actually in the background here. Let me get it. Oh. So this was an anthology that we did that was basically about during the kind of lockdown. What we wanted to do was essentially bring a lot of different authors together have a kind of novel that would, and all the proceeds would go to charity essentially. And yeah, I mean that was just a kind of like different. That was just a mix of. It didn't have to be. There was no genre. There was no particular. It wasn't sci-fi. It wasn't. It could be about anything essentially. Um, but the theme was hope, isolation, da da da, da sort of thing. I think a lot of people that were obviously during like the first year of lockdown. It's so bizarre now to kind of think back to that time where everyone was like inside and not going out and everything like that. It's that weird concept of just not going out, but like through that where we did an anthology, and we did it really quick as well, which was surprising, because being able to sort of put together like an anthology, get people that would write and then put it together and put it through and get it out there sort of thing to the masses was really actually quite um quick in that respect. But then we've also got like annihilation radiation, which is like a kind of well, annihilation radiation is about like there was like three concepts. It was like before the apocalypse, during the apocalypse, after the apocalypse. So there's like three tangent stories going on there, or different stories going on. So we have a lot of great writers that have like brought their kind of A game sort of thing to that, where you've got like before the apocalypse happens, which is something that I haven't seen in an anthology as well. And then we've got now the Return to Shadow Creek, which is going to be more horror based sort of thing. So we like. I mean, I've always been into like the kind of like the horror aspects of things and the dark and surreal, I guess, if you will. But that's there's a lot of different ones going on there. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I wonder how that works. I've always wondered how that works, how anthologies work, and kind of how they fit, or what you're looking for, what you have in mind with it. Do they need a theme, or can it be just a bunch of short stories?
I think you do need it. Like, there's always this kind of concept of like anthologies don't do very well in terms of like people actually picking them up. I remember when I think it was our first anthology that we did, and we were trying to sort of get it out there into bookshops and stuff like that. And people that we were like talking to were essentially saying like, anthologies don't really do very well. And we're like, well, okay, I get that, but like also at the same time, like I love a good anthology. I love reading short stories, whether it be by I think the concept is like if you have an author that you appreciate, for example, and they release a short story compilation or an anthology, you're going to read that obviously because of that author. Whereas if you have an author or have an anthology or by different authors, there needs to be I think there needs to be that common thread, because like for example, if you're a horror advocate, then you're obviously going to see, you go on Amazon, you see this like the best horror of 2022. Yeah, I'm going to read that because like you have these names that are pertaining to that particular genre. If you have like a theme or something, like if you just said like I don't know, microphone is a theme. All right, so you're gonna have this anthology about microphones. Like it's a bit weird. So yeah, it's that kind of thing of like you have. I think the genre is, you're gonna have people that will pick up the book because they like sci-fi or they like romance or they like comedy or they like surrealism or whatever you want to call it, sort of thing. So I think you do need to have a realm of. A lot of people will be like, here's the theme is birthdays. We're talking about birthday treat. There's birthdays, so the whole anthology is about, in some weird way, birthdays. But that could be then very tangent. Like basically, you could have like a very kind of like surreal birthday novel, short story. You could have like a comedic one. That's all good. But I think then the people that are going to, it kind of detaches, like, because you're going to start reading. I mean, you've probably read like a lot of anthologies where it's been a bit mixed, and
Mhm.
that's the whole thing about anthologies, because there's going to be stories where you read and they're like, that's my best. You can be like, that's a really good story, but then follow up with a story that I didn't really resonate with, and therefore, do I continue reading, sort of thing. Like, it's about the kind of time that you kind of put into it, sort of thing. But if you have like a defining genre, if you will, then I think people will adhere to it a bit more. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. And I think those seeds are already germinating in your mind about birthdays. You're already thinking about a birthday themed anthology.
Yeah.
But no, that makes sense about a genre. And when you're writing your other birthday treat and your new project, how much does that go into your decision making process that you have to kind of gear it towards a specific genre so you can so if someone's looking for thrillers, they know where to, they'll see it on the list, or horror, whatever it may be. How important is that through your process to kind of gear it a certain way?
That's a good question. I think, for example, birthday treat. I why it took me so long to do was because I didn't know
Mm.
um, what kind of genre it would come under. Like it was a bit of a surreal, futuristic, dystopian, but also there's a lot of different threads going on. And I wanted to try and hit the right mark, like what you were saying about before about the kind of the humor, for example. Like is the humor. So there was, for me personally, that was the hardest thing to kind of try and amalgamate all these things together into one that didn't make it too much, because obviously a lot of books, a lot of things get pigeonholed into a certain thing, and that's fine. That's why I think with my next one, it is going to be horror based, because I know that, like, um, for my mental perspective of actually writing it, I'll be like, right, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. Da, 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 da. With birthday treat, it was a bit more experimental, I guess. And sometimes with experimentation, some things work, some things don't. You have to kind of throw things out. You kind of like let things gestate for a while. So that's why it took so long. Um, yeah, I think there. I think if any person who is writing something, who wants to write a story, I think definitely need to pin down like a tent peg. Like you'd be like, right, this is where I'm going. This is the direction where I'm going. And it'll just make your life so much easier, I think, at the end of the day. Because like you don't, I'm very scattergun. I'm very kind of shotgun in terms of my thoughts and stuff like that. If this interview hasn't already kind of like perceived that, but like, yeah, I kind of I transition from like one thing to another like very quickly, and that's not the best thing sometimes. So yeah.
It's funny because I keep hearing in the last couple of years or so, I keep hearing people say that genres are a thing of the past, that genres don't matter anymore. It's everything is everything, and it's a story can be every genre smashed together, and it's okay. But now that I hear more about the business side of it and getting the visibility on, or getting people's eyeballs on the book, so they can be aware that it's out there to begin with, genres are very important. So it's a funny how a lot of people, I heard a lot of people say genres are, the doesn't matter, but they do really matter.
Mm,
I guess you're
definitely.
then
Yeah.
it doesn't matter about.
No, definitely. Like you said, like it's, especially from a self-publishing sort of like game, you need to use all the tricks of the trade, I guess. I don't do it. I'm really bad at it, sort of thing. I'm gonna have to hire someone to like be my marketing person, because I personally can't do it. I don't blow my own trumpet enough, sort of thing. I'm very aware of this. I'm very aware of that fact. So yeah, no, definitely. Like yeah, people who are wanting to write a particular thing, yeah, definitely get into those kind of like horror. Let's just take horror for example. Like get into those kind of communities, get into those groups, um, chat with like-minded people, sort of thing, because that's the way that happens, kind of thing. I myself need to take my own advice because I don't do it, sort of thing. Um, at the end of the day, I just enjoy writing, sort of thing. But also at the same time, it's like when you've written like a kind of 300, 400 page type novel, and you kind of put it out there, you just don't want to be like, well, I've done that. Now no one's going to see it.
Yeah, exactly. You
You
want
know,
people to read it.
you need, yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah.
And would you recommend? I'm not sure if this is something you would recommend it having done as well, but do you recommend joining like a writers association, or like the what is HWA, like Horror Writers Association? Is that
Um,
um,
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can. It's like anything, like in that respect of it's a weird one, I think, because if you get you can because there's obviously another kind of bracket of uh tools that you can use to kind of like for your own stuff. Personally, I don't adhere to that myself,
Mm.
only because of the fact that I'm on, like, for example, on Facebook and stuff like that. I'm part of groups and stuff like that, and it's interesting to see certain things. I just don't really join in.
Yeah.
Um, not in a, I'm not saying in a bad way or anything like that. It's just that I just don't. Yeah, I don't. For me, it's not for me personally.
Mm.
But for more, as I said, once again, I'm lazy and I'm apathetic. So like there are probably going to be people that are like, really gunning for it, wanting to do it. Go for it, do it. Yeah, why not?
And I wonder if those groups aren't for you because you already have that support system with Storgy, and you already have people you're close to that are writers, and that's probably fills that role for you, I would guess.
Well, it's that's a weird one in itself as well, because um we I wanted to kind of like for example, Birthday Treat is not published by Storgy. I wanted to kind of make it very kind of like myself, Ross, and Tom. When we first started this, we were like, my kind of thing was like, we don't want to, it doesn't want to become like a vanity project. So anything that we write isn't going to be published by Storgy.
Mm.
Either we do it ourselves or we have agents or whatever sort of thing. Um, and that was a very, for me personally, that was a very kind of poignant sort of like thing, because like, yeah, with Georgie, we've built up a bit of a, with a fan base of writers and stuff like that. We've also built up a lot of people who are in the industry and stuff like that as well. But also at the same time, it got to the point of like, we'd rather like publish other people's works because we want to be perceived as a publisher rather
Mhm.
than throwing our own things out there. Um, and yeah, it has been a kind of point of contention to
Mm.
to certain degrees, I guess, because like at the end of the day, like I think with myself with Birthday Treat, I never wanted it to go through Storgy because I think that would be personally, I think that would be a bit of a vanity thing, and it would like, well, you know,
Mm.
if it has legs, then it will stand on its own, sort of thing. Um, so yeah, yeah.
Mm. Interesting. And we were speaking of horror, like the HWA. Are you going? I know this is probably a long shot, but are you going to StokerCon?
Where was that be? Like I know because Ross was so his last year, was it last year? Yeah, last year his novella, he was on the Stoker Awards. Um, where is it being held this year?
It's in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, America.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be making it to America, but I'll
Yeah,
be online. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I was just because I'm heading that way in May, so
Oh, nice. So you're gonna
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go with the.
are they having like a fit? Because I know, like, obviously because of COVID and all that kind of stuff. So they're actually having like the actual event thing happening there then.
Yeah, there is
Oh,
an
that's awesome.
online version, but there is in person.
Oh, so they'll have the that's really good.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, keep me up to date on that. Yeah, I'd love to know more about that. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Uh, it's funny because I had been talking with Daniel Barnett, author Daniel Barnett, about going, and we just ended up planning a trip. So I'm gonna drive up there,
Love it.
and yeah, it'd be fun. Fun few
Where are
days.
you based then? Sort of how far is it for you to go?
It's about an 7 hour drive for me one way.
Oof.
Yeah,
Road trip then.
yeah, road trip. But
Long weekend road trip. I like it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I just don't want to fly. Yeah, I don't want to deal
Hey,
with all
just
that
take
stuff.
it easy. Yeah, just go on
Yeah,
the highway.
I like road trip. I did a lot of business travel for many years, so I'm fine with not flying, especially now.
When is that happening then?
It is May 11th, I think, or at least I'm leaving May 11th.
Okay.
But I thought I'd ask maybe I know it's a long trip for you,
Yeah, yeah.
but that would be
I don't think I'll probably be able to make it to like, yeah, probably not this year. But who knows?
hmm,
Maybe next year when I have my horror thing out next year, and if it gets nominated, then we'll see.
that'd be cool. That'd be fun. Yeah, I thought it was a long shot, but I
Yeah,
was,
be great to meet up with you though, like in terms of like just going out and chatting the fat and everything like that sort of thing. So, um, but I don't know when. I don't have any plans to go to America this year. But you
when
never
was the
know; it
last
could change.
when was the last time you've been here?
I've never been to America.
Oh, you never have. Okay,
No, so it'll be like a new experience for me. Be like a
nice.
kind of Wizard of Oz type of following the yellow brick road type thing going on.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's I've never been in the UK, so one of these days we'll head out there.
Well, if
But
you ever decide to come to the UK, I'll be able to give you the whole tour
the
of
pub,
everywhere you
pub
want to
tour.
go. Whatever you
Yeah,
want to do, it's all good,
and
Steve. It's all
and
about.
the pub thing is a real thing, right? It's really people, you really take it seriously. The pub the pub
What's the pub thing?
just like it's like this event, and it's like let's go to the pub. It's
Yeah,
it's
it's like a
common.
social gathering.
Yeah,
It's a way of like just but yeah, we friends. We just go to the pub. That's where we chat and just catch up and talk about everything,
nice.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's your favorite type of beer at the pub? What's your drink?
I don't drink beer, so
Oh,
I drink whiskey or wine. So yeah, beer is too like beer is like the last resort for me. Um, yeah, and it passes right through me as well. It gets
hmm.
embarrassing going to the toilet every like 10 minutes when you're at a table. So no whiskey's my game, if you will.
What kind of whiskey or what's your daily sipper?
Well, a lot of connoisseurs of whiskey will hate me, but I like Bell's. I like Bell's whiskey or Powers
Mm.
Irish whiskey. Um, they're like the kind of minion sort of like whiskies. They're like but that's what I like. Other than that, a good Malbec, like a good red wine, like a good fruity red wine. That'll get me through the night, sort of thing. So yeah.
What's your special occasion whiskey?
Oh, I don't know if it's a special occasion, but like so my girlfriend did get me this. I don't know how good it is, but I'll show you. This is an Irish whiskey, but I've been saving this. I don't know if it's called Right as Tears.
Nice.
It's an Irish whiskey, triple distilled. Um, it's that weird thing now that I don't know if it's like I'm saving it for like a special occasion, but like what is the special occasion I wait for it to do, like to kind of knock it out? You know what I mean? And it's got like its own little hip flask thing.
That's
I
cool.
don't know about hip flasks. I never understood hip flasks. Why are you
It's like,
going to take a hip flask to somewhere? Like if you're going to like a stadium or something like that, you like it's going to do you like that. It's not going to
yeah, it's whiskey on the go.
whiskey on the go. So that's that. Yeah. So, but I don't know when that's gonna. I don't know when that's gonna be opened. It's, now, and I felt like I've sort of set it on a pedestal. So it's like, when is the kind of the time that's going to be to open it?
Well, it is called Writer's Tears, so you think it'd be fitting to drink it when your anthology's done, after you've edited it.
Well, maybe then I tell you what. The next time when the anthology's done, and I'll be back on your channel again,
Okay,
Steve.
I'm gonna hold
You
you
talk
to that.
about the next anthology.
I'm gonna
I
hold you
will
to that.
crack it open then with us.
Okay, I'll have some whiskey. I'll have some special occasion whiskey on my side, and we'll enjoy some whiskey and talk about the anthology.
I like that. Yeah.
I'm gonna hold you. Don't you can't tell me things like that. So I'm gonna be bothering you here in a month or two.
No bother at all. I love it. Yeah.
So I always like to. I have a few questions that I like to ask everyone before I let you go, because I know it's getting late for you.
Yeah. No.
The one of the first question was, Do you have any favorite family recipes?
Ooh, favorite family recipes. Um, hmm. This isn't a favorite family recipe sort of per se, but
Oh,
my dad always made us a particularly spicy spag bowl.
spag bowl.
Yeah, spaghetti bolognese. And
Oh,
it's not like it's not like there's no like flavoring or anything like that. It was just the way he made it. I think it's that kind of thing of like, when you if you have like family that make you a dish, a kind of traditional dish, and depending on where, like, if you're from like Spain or you're from France or whatever sort of thing, there'll be like a particular like nuance to it, sort of thing. I don't know. My dad just always did this kind of like spag bowl thing that was has always stuck with me. So whenever I make a spag bowl, it's always something that I add some flavorings to and stuff like that to like inspire the recipe sort of thing to kind of make it more. And I know it's like a traditional thing. It's not particularly hard to make. For example, you put in spaghetti in thing, you put meat in there thing, but there's a good combination. You can make it really nice. Yeah.
so how do you make it? You don't leave me in suspense.
Well, I can't give you the secret recipes, but there's certain spices that are laden with the meats kind of thing, and it has to be done at a certain. There's certain sauces that go in as well. Maybe that I should have led with that. I should have led with there's a particular self sauce.
Mm,
Can't
okay.
give you the recipe though. It's the Colonel's secret recipe.
Well, when I go to the UK, I expect a traditional spag bowl.
Steve, you come round, oh, you'll be sorted.
Okay.
I will
All right.
sort you out with the Self Spag Bowl.
Okay. And the next question was, if the zombie apocalypse happened today, what would be your weapon of choice?
Wow. It'd have to be silent, obviously.
Mm.
So it'd have to be a blade. It'd have to be like a kind of like axe type thing. Um, if I like held up in my house here, sort of thing, my flat at the moment, I'm quite good because we've got where I'm living at the moment is like that kind of like one terrace, like so it's like one flat downstairs, one upstairs. I'm the upstairs one, so and there's two doors to get through. So there's some barricades going on, but the weapon, yeah, it'd have to be a blade, sharp blade, almost like an axe. Are we talking about like weapons that we have in our house, or my dream weapon sort of thing?
Either one.
Okay. If it was a weapon around the house, I'm just looking around now. I don't think I'd actually have anything too good.
No heavy
It'd have to be
books.
like a knife from the kitchen, but that would get blunt. I would like to go with a type of, yeah, like an axe, like a hatchet, like Walking Dead style hatchet, like Rick Grimes in the early sort of like graphic novels, sort of like because it's easy, it's compact, and it can do the damage it needs to do, and you can like run away. But I don't have a hatchet. I need to get a hatchet. I go to the DIY store tomorrow. I'm going to get a hatchet.
You got to be prepared. And
Always.
so the follow up to that is, and made me think of it when you talked about your flat, is would you hunker down and stay put, or would you keep moving?
Oh, I know, like with the kind of Brad Pitt, like World War Z, sort of like was like you got to keep moving. You got to keep moving. Moving is living.
Yeah.
No, I would hunker down. I would hunker down completely here because I feel like this is the best place to be. Um, I always had that kind of contingency plan. I think I wrote like a short story about it. It's called the
Mm.
Zombie Contingency Plan, where a guy meets a girl at a birthday party or some party sort of thing. They're talking about this stuff, and he basically says like, so if the zombie apocalypse broke out, like where would you go? Like what would you do? And it would be like from here, for example, in my place. So there's a window like right here. You can't see it, but like there, I would create like a zip line for like yeah, I've thought about this
Nice.
stuff. So there'd be like a zip line that goes down to like a neighbor's house where they have a jacuzzi. Don't know why that's
Mm.
relevant, but there's a jacuzzi there. So just in case the last, if the zombie infected broke through, I'm like, oh no, I got to go. My hatchet's not working anymore. Jump out the window, zip line down, jacuzzi. Hey,
Mm.
have a good time. Have a good little soak. But also at the same time, um, yeah, I think you got to have that kind of like you got to have the height. I don't know why I liken a zombie apocalypse to a tsunami, but like the higher you get, the better you are. That's how I feel. So I think that if you're in a place where you've got enough food, I think I would have enough. I think I've got enough stuff in the house at the moment to do. I think I can get away with a month
Mm.
eating wise. If I ration it out, maybe 2 months. Um, but then water is fine, right? Because like water's
Mm.
not going to turn off, so water's fine. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
I'd hold in for a bit until and then I'd get like a CB radio and from somewhere. I'd go down to the jacuzzi, get the CB radio, come back
Back
up. I
up.
don't know, and then I'd find out where the safe haven is, and
Mm.
then travel. Because
Then
you have to
travel.
wait, like, because if you think about the zombies that are like the 28 days later ones that are like really like animated and like, after a couple of months, the joints start seizing up and then they'll become like shambling zombies. And then then you have more of a chance to like just twat them away with you to go.
Okay. The next question was,
"Mm,
what was your first job?
First job. Wow. First job was shelf stacker at Safeways, now Morrison's in the UK. But Safeways is where it used to be. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Wow. Like what, you 15, 16? Just getting that part-time job when you're at school and you're like, I'm independent. I can
Yeah.
make money by myself. I can get £200 a week. Yay. It was that kind of thing. Yeah. So no, I've met a lot of friends, like still now long lifetime friends from working at Safeways.
Mm.
So I used to live in Acton was where I used to live basically. My hometown essentially, and there was like the shopping mall, if you will, was the Safeways. We didn't have that American thing where like people like just hang out there. It wasn't that kind of like place. But yeah, no, shelf stacker, and then was on the tills, was on the meat and dairy aisle, face stacking. Oh, that was the thing. I had this kind of opinion where every job has a what I now consider called face stacking. So at the end of the shift, if you're working a late shift, um, which would basically be like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, because you have to get all the stuff out for the people that come in the morning. There was this one thing you had to do, and that was like basically bring all the like when you go into a supermarket and you have the things at the back,
Mm.
which are like the sell by date is like tomorrow.
Yeah.
You need to bring that at the front, sort of thing. So the job was basically at the end of the night, whatever the shift was, you had to go in and you had to bring all these things at the front so that obviously the company wouldn't, lose the money and stuff. It was called Face Up. And it's the most tedious, ridiculous fucking thing. Because at the end of the day, like the person that comes in tomorrow, they just take off the thing. And then within like half an hour, the face up is completely null and void. But I've always said, like in any job that I've had, there's always been like a face up
Mm.
element to it, and I think that's true to this day. There's a point of any person's job that there's a tedious part of it that are like, oh, I don't really want to do this. This is the most tedious thing, but there's always that element of it. So yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. That's a good one. Face up.
Mm.
Good stuff.
Not face off, not like the
Face up.
yeah. I want to take his face off.
Yeah. Face off. Yeah.
That's a different kind of part of the Safeways motto that we did.
Mm.
So we would basically go into a room and we would duel.
To the death.
To the death, and you take the person's face off and wear it on yourself.
Supermarkets in the UK do not mess around, huh?
We don't fuck around.
Yeah.
Safeways didn't. That's why they changed the Morrisons. There was too many cases that came out.
Too many missing people. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Too many missing people, too many missing faces.
Yeah. To cover it up, it's a conspiracy.
I've still got away with it for now, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's another short story collection you can start on.
That would actually be quite good stuff.
That would be good.
Yeah.
So you have 2 new ideas for anthologies now. There you go.
That's it. Yeah. The supermarket sweep. There you go. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. You already have a title. So I know you're bad at tooting your own horn, but if people want to find you or your work, where can they find you?
If people want to find me on Amazon, they want to get Birthday Treat to find a dystopian sort of story, then you can go on Amazon, just Birthday Treat by Anthony Self. I'm Mr. Selfie on Twitter. I think that's it, really. I'm not really an Instagram-y sort of person. Yeah, Twitter, and I'm not really that kind of vocal on Twitter either. I like to promote other people. I like to retweet other people's things. People of much higher stature and stuff like that. I prefer to do that kind of stuff rather than write my own things, because I'll just write some really weird shit basically, and people won't really know what's going on. So, but yeah, Mr. Selfie on Twitter, but on Amazon, Birthday Treat, and Storgy, of course, as well. If you want to read a lot of short stories, we've got like a whole collection. We've got a whole archive of short stories there now, sort of thing, and interviews with famous writers and everything like that as well, and reviews of books as well. So yeah, there's that element of it as well. So yeah.
And I will add all those links down below in the description on YouTube or on the podcast in the description for the episode. So it's always a pleasure talking to you. And like I said, I didn't even prepare for it because I knew we'd just find stuff to talk about. So
that's what I love. Yeah, like I love talking to you, Steve, like, because like we can just like chat the fat sort of thing, and we can talk about zombie apocalypse type things. And I love those kind of questions. I love it. It's great. It makes me think as well. It's like, oh, what would I do in this kind of scenario? So,
yeah. So I have video and audio evidence that we're gonna crack that bottle of whiskey open together. So
yes, right as tears. We're gonna do it when the anthology comes out. Me and you. Right. The next time we do this, we'll have the whiskeys. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's in stone. All right. I'm gonna hold you to it. So thanks again for I know it's late for you, but thanks for staying up and chatting with me. I always appreciate it. It's always fun.
Lovely. It was lovely, and I love your channel, Steve. And I think what you're doing is really fucking awesome. I love the kind of like authors that you're sort of interviewing, and if anyone's watching, sort of thing, subscribe, listen. It's great. You're a great, like you're. Like, I'm not saying this in a kind of, but like you kind of get to that kind of like point of like you read the stuff that people do, and you're a great interviewer as well, and you're very melody voice as well. Timbre in your voice is great.
I have no idea what I'm doing, so thank you for
good. You're doing good, man. I love it.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just having fun, so it's working out okay.
That's what you gotta do. That's it. That's what it's all about.
Right on. So thanks everybody for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time to crack that bottle of whiskey.
Look forward to it. Take care.